I released an update today on the progress that I've been making writing a book. And it's something that I feel a bit self-conscious about because it was just the process of having some ideas and then wanting to flesh them out, wanting to explore my own thoughts, and all of a sudden it was looking like it would be closer to book size than blog size, I guess you could say. Or there was a video that Paul released, I guess a day or so ago, with some chat from a live stream that Luke hosted about loving your neighbor and kind of some ideas and about what's the balance with this thinky talky stuff, and it brought some thoughts to mind about like why am I doing this sort of thing, and ultimately, is there going to be some thinky talky stuff in there? Probably. Like writing a book is a thing where that's an accomplishment, and it's just it's going to be self-published. I don't have any clout to have a publisher look at it or anything, and it's all over the place, and it's really going to be released in a sort of not exactly unedited, but a draft form. I tend to tinker as I go along, but it is probably way more fleshed out than it needs to be. It could be pared down, it could be more concise, and part of it was, maybe it'd be interesting, we kind of have that aspect with Paul's videos, and he played the clip of Bob talking to Christian and saying that that's kind of what he likes. He likes those messy edges, and I do think that there's something important to that. You get to see behind the scenes. Not everything is the polished content. So I'm going to release a rough-ish book. But as I was thinking about it, and thinking about the reasons why, a lot of it is more to do with the downstream and the in real life, and even expanding my ability to participate in some of these online spaces. And part of it is realizing that the reason why I think these communities spring up is because we have a real problem formulating these things in the real world. And the online space provides some guardrails in some ways. It makes it a little bit safer for people. And even the people that we want to consider like bad faith actors or something like that, these are wounded people, I think. And not to say like everybody's a saint. Like some people are just jerks, or some people have no interest in participating. But it's hard to tell the difference between somebody who has no interest in participating and somebody who's pushing buttons because they want to see where people are genuinely at. And I shared a little bit of this online on Twitter, when Richard Rowland blocked me, which wasn't really a big deal, but it was a little annoying because I had tried to reach out and engage with him on some other things, because I am wanting to build a bridge, and it's I can't sign on all the way to like the Orthodox world. I have some serious reservations about it, but that doesn't mean that there's not like commonality between their way of seeing things and mine. And I wanted to expand some of the conversation into some areas that I think branch off slightly. But that was a previous time, and whatever. I just didn't get any engagement, and it blocked me. And it made me think about Jacob, and I love Jacob, but he's very harsh at first. A lot of people have a hard time with him. And I've been thinking, the first conversation we had, he was really pushing me hard to get at my, at the answers for why I was saying some critical things about his channel and stuff like that. And, this is me being a total internet noob and not really knowing, like, how to reach out with him. I just kind of started making a little commentary on his video before I had spoken to him in person. And, what I came to see and understand is that he was pushing my buttons to see what was really beneath the surface. And I think that that's a little bit of my reticence when we get kind of in the kumbaya spirit of conversation about being nice or being kind or friendly. We are excluding some people for not the right reasons. And I can play along those games in some ways. Like on my Big Five thing, my agreeableness is mostly politeness. So I know how to be polite, and I know how to speak in the way that I will most of the time not be blocked or kicked out of a conversation. But what I've come to realize is that those rules are becoming much more confusing as they pertain to culture at large. You could even say like something like political correctness or things. The numbers of things that become taboo is ever increasing. And navigating those rules is much more difficult for some people than others. And I would put myself in that category in some ways, because even though I am somewhat verbally talented and I can be articulate at some points, I've had a hard time feeling like I am understood by those around me. And I will acquiesce to the other point of view for the sake of getting along, for the sake of maintaining that relationship. Now, my more recent discovery, come to find out that essentially my brain works differently, an autism spectrum thing. But I think that there's many people that are probably afflicted in that way to some degree. And the more I study it, it's interesting because it doesn't seem like it's a bad thing, or at least from the viewpoint of this corner. One theory essentially puts it this way, that the neurons in your brain, they grow like a bush, and at a certain point branches are pruned off, and that's the neurotypical brain prunes off those branches, whereas the neurodivergent brain just keeps them all growing in all directions, and it doesn't know where to prune them unless they get pruned by culture and society and the arena. And the way that happens is that they bump into sharp edges and hard lines, and people find that something that they did or said was wrong, and it hurts. And so they'll try not to do that again. But the problem is they don't understand why it's wrong or the specific about it that's wrong. So they may try to change it up, but they do something that's missing the point, and then they get hurt again. And so this is the problem with our society, is that it's become catered towards those who can easily grok the rules, the unspoken rules. And what those unspoken rules have morphed into, really a form of deception, a form of dishonesty. And if you think that image of two bushes, one being pruned and one being unpruned, what's remarkably similar to what Ian McGilchrist says about the right brain and the left brain. The left brain is the one that's always trying to reduce the world to something comprehensible. And as he says, our whole society is there. So the autistic person, maybe you could say those who are neurodivergent, are the people whose brains are more inclined to, under the right circumstances, grow symmetrically, grow into the full image. But because of often the sensitivity of pain and the blindness to what those rules are, that tree does get pruned, and it gets pruned into a more and more and more limited space where it's just trying to survive. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I worry about the overemphasis on the fullness of community, the in-person, and saying that that's the best. Perhaps it is the best. It's the best for those who can handle it the right way, but it excludes some people. And even the live stream, if it's, if you're only considering the participation of those who are willing to be on screen and speak their mind, you are making a pruning of who can be involved. And some of that stuff is inevitable, but I think it's important to be aware of what we're doing. So, kind of to get back on topic, the idea of writing a book. Ultimately, it's why did I write a book? Well, here's something. Temple Grandin said, people with the autistic mind, you have to work a little differently. You can't sell people on you. And I think that our culture has really gone in the direction of favoring those who can sell themselves. I can't sell myself. But if I can build something, or write something, or have an idea, or produce something, if I can create a thing, I can sell the thing to you. And the thing speaks for me. Ultimately, I'm writing a book so that I can have something that I can hold in my hand and say, this is what I really think. And maybe it's only true about me. It's not about being right, but it's true about me. And then if somebody's willing to read it, I've given them the best chance that I could craft for them to know me and understand me prior to the conversations and the process of building friendships. And for me, that could be a better starting place. I would like to be friends with the person who was willing to read the whole book that I wrote and hopefully didn't get too bored. But even if I don't become friends with that person or something, I think there could still be value. Because it is me selling me in a way. It's me selling ideas, and I'm not trying to be clever and say that I've come up with it. It's just how I've been able to make sense of life for myself. And that's, from that standpoint, if somebody reads it and they disagree with everything I said, at least it's still accomplished something, because if they've really thought about it and they disagree, then they understand where they're coming from much better, and hopefully they can articulate it. To get to the content of the book, in some ways it's about a lot of the things that I've kind of talked about with my Tectonic School project, a way to reintegrate working with your hands, connecting your work to meaning, not necessarily as a permanent career, but as something to get people out of this kind of digital wasteland, the Netflix box, into some real space. That's the goal. But hopefully it's something that can draw some of the people that are a little less apt into those spaces. And for those who are more apt, who are more friendly and hospitable, for them to be aware of where the people are at. In the piece that I wrote, I included a link to this video. What if alt hist? He basically just, the video is called Stop Coping, Your Life Sucks. And it's just taking an honest look at the fact that life is really crappy for a lot of people. And I think there are some solutions, but the combination of what they can do, combined with the worldview that's been presented to them and the way that they look at life, is just depressing. And I think that's a darkness we need to confront in some ways, because that's where many people were before they came into this space. Or people have come into this space tend to be a little older, maybe a little bit more millennials, less Zoomers. We got some in here for sure, but the how to be an adult and how to figure your life out is getting harder. And like Peterson isn't reaching those young guys anymore. To some extent, maybe, but it's more Andrew Tate, and I don't think that's good. The book is hopefully meant to be encouraging to those guys, and hopefully meant to be a little bit inspiring to people my age to consider, like, we didn't have the baton passed on to us in the way that we had hoped or imagined, but we are somewhere now. Maybe we're not in a temple or a castle or a fully established thing. Maybe we're surviving in a tent, but a tent is still better than the person out in the cold. So maybe we just need to bring the person who's out in the cold into the tent, into the temporary structure that we've erected, and help them get their feet underneath them. And then they can catch up to where we are, maybe a little quicker. We're still figuring things out. That's the goal. So I hope people will check it out, when it becomes available. Anybody who wants to talk about it, I will be willing to send them, an ebook for free in exchange for a conversation. My goal is to finish it by my birthday, which is about 3 weeks away. I don't know if that will happen, but maybe within a month or two at the most. It's a constant struggle of battling my own standards with just getting things done or whatever. So I think we do have to do real things like that. You have to have something tangible. Maybe it's a little bit more of something to point at as a catalyst for new conversation and for new people entering this space and things like that. So that's what I'm working on. Hopefully people will stay tuned. People will engage with it. I would love to talk to people about my ideas. I'm sorry to say that I feel like people will need to read a whole book to really get where I'm going, but that's just the way it is sometimes, I guess. So anyway, check out the post. I'll put a link in the description, and leave a comment.